Jaguars. It's Saturday night, 8 Eastern. It's in Jacksonville. So we're 4 days away from the Jaguars' first playoff appearance since 2017. Here's head coach Doug Peterson, who wants more from his team Saturday night. It's new on SportsCenter.
I think the offense needs to have a better game than the other night, quite frankly. We didn't do enough. I mean, we had opportunities, obviously missed some opportunities in the game that, we need to learn from. But sometimes that's the way games go. Tight games like that, it's going to come down to, this could be a defensive battle or something of that nature. Special teams did a nice job. But I think overall, offensively, as a group, coaches included need to do a little better.
My goodness, it seems like the Urban Meyer era was a decade ago. What a difference a year makes in a coaching change.
Matters.
Yep, certainly does. Marcus Spears. Trevor Lawrence making his playoff debut. What will you be watching the closest when this young man takes the field?
It was funny to hear Doug Peterson talk about that because, as you know, Sage, before these shows, producers will reach out to us and be like, what are you thinking on this?
Yeah.
These are the topics. And legit, I told Meg Cassidy, the producer today, I said this offense has to start fast. And that's what Doug Peterson is talking about. They middled around in the game against Tennessee. And Trevor Lawrence has the ability to be explosive. Christian Kirk on the outside. You also talk about Travis Etienne out of the backfield. Ingram, as we see here. They got to get going earlier in these games. The Los Angeles Chargers are going to put points up early, probably. And I'm not trying to discredit Jacksonville's defense because they have actually made opportunistic plays, key turnovers at times in games to win games. But they're going to have to start fast in this game. Talent-wise, Jacksonville is fine. I think Trevor is playing well enough to be a playoff quarterback. This wide receiving core as a committee. Ingram at tight end, Travis Etienne out of the backfield. Offensive line has done a nice job. But ultimately, when you get to this point, right, you need consistent play through 4 quarters. You can't wait late into games, especially with the offenses that usually show up in the playoffs, to start figuring out what you can do offensively.
And it's going to be rocking there in Jacksonville. So if they can get going early on, I mean,
this is not a gimme for the Chargers by no means.
Absolutely not, which is fascinating. Hey, they're playing better here later in the season compared to how they started. But this one's going to be really fun to watch Saturday night. We know what we're doing all weekend long. Absolutely nothing watching football. Thanks, Marcus. Nothing.
Hey, when SportsCenter returns, the Warriors are open to get some Curry back on their knee.
This point, because for Dallas, and fairly so, it's about the playoffs. But Mike McCarthy has been in Dallas 3 years. He's about to go to the playoffs his second time in 3 years of being there. He's won 24 regular season games with a non-Hall of Fame quarterback and a receiver that we have never considered one of the best receivers in the NFL. And those roster moves were made by Jerry Jones. If you were to take the Dallas Cowboys wide receiving core right now, where would you rank them in the NFL? And we sit here every year talking about this man's job. It's starting to, I want Jerry to understand the type of pressure that he puts on a coach. And obviously that exists in Dallas. But Mike McCarthy is being unfairly talked about his job here again for the second year in a row. And by the way, let me add this, Jay.
All right, Marcus.
The starting quarterback missed 4 games this year.
That is true.
And he's won 12 games. But we're going to keep bringing this job up every single season. I'm fine with Mike McCarthy being the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. If you told me every year that the coach is going to get you 12 games and into the playoffs with a chance to get in the tournament, every team in the NFL would take that. I'm sorry, MK. Go ahead.
No, I agree. Listen, I'll say this, Marcus. I do think it was reasonable to criticize Mike McCarthy last year for some of the game management decisions, the penalties. But the job he has done this year, especially with Dak Prescott being out as long as he was, getting them to this point, to me, it does clear him from being on the hot seat. Doesn't mean he's immune from criticism if they finish in the playoffs the way we just saw them play in Week 18. But I don't think Jerry Jones will be replacing Mike McCarthy anytime soon.
All right, let's get to the game. Mina, we're going to start with you this time.
Mina just calmed me down.
She did. She
always can calm me down.
Well, that's why we're going to let her start, because you need to calm just a little bit more. A little bit more. Mina, what's your biggest area of concern this time around for the Cowboys matchup going against these Buccaneers?
Yeah, it's obviously hard not to talk about Dak Prescott's interceptions over the, last 11 games, and that's the huge issue. But I'm going to go to the other side of the ball. I am very worried about Tampa's deep ball versus this Dallas secondary. A deep ball that was really hit or miss for much of the season, but seeing the way Tom Brady and Mike Evans closed the season with that incredible performance, to me, in Week 17, has to strike fear in the heart of Cowboys fans, because this is a secondary that is banged up. Cornerback group that outside of Trevon Diggs has a lot of weaknesses. Over the last 2 months of the season, they were the second worst team in the NFL versus deep passes. So if Brady can sustain what we saw throwing to Mike Evans and also getting the ball quickly as he does, that would be a worry for me for the Cowboys defense, which is entirely dependent on its pass rush getting home.
Hey, MK, I'm going to piggyback on your first point about Dak's turnovers, right? We know what the turnover battle means in the NFL. Brady is 20-1 in his playoff career when he wins the turnover battle in the playoffs. So we know that that's an obvious stat. Like, we've talked about Dak and these turnovers, which all haven't been his fault. But here recently, he's been throwing in the coverage. If you go back to Week 1 against Tampa, this interception right here that we're showing with Antoine Winfield gave him a position to get in the end zone. Micah Parsons made a big sack while they were in the red zone, and it was a field goal. But this Dallas defense played well enough Week 1 to win. Micah Parsons had 2 sacks. They finally took him off the second level and put him at the line of scrimmage. I would try to get him matched up on Donovan Smith as much as possible. We know the flaws of Tampa Bay. We know you got to get pressure on Tom Brady. But to Mina's point, that deep ball, and we've been talking about this for weeks on NFL Live, and she's brought it up. Opposite of Trevon Diggs, you have a real problem with the Dallas Cowboys defense. Now, we talking about that being Mike Evans, we talking about Chris Godwin, or some guys that can exploit that matchup. Just for 3 hours in a playoff game, there is no surety that this will be a successful outing for the Dallas Cowboys. And at this point, with Tom Brady, especially building that rapport with what we saw him do with Mike Evans in that last game against Carolina, that should be the scariest thing going into this ball game. But the turnovers are a huge issue, because Tom Brady history tells you that if you turn it over more than him, you're going to lose the game 95% of the time.
All right, let's stick with Brady. He and the Bucs, they won the NFC South. It was not pretty. Here he is on his Let's Go podcast from Monday night. Take a listen.
Playing, on Monday night's great, and it's as we know, it's a must-game win, which is a little strange after having a game that really didn't matter for the playoffs. Now we got one that's the only thing that matters, which is trying to figure out how to beat the Cowboys. And we beat them in Week 1. We're a very different team. They're a very different team. It's going to be a lot of great prep. This is what it's all about. Some people can really lock in. I think one thing I've noticed over the years, sometimes the moment does get a little too big for people. And there's some that the moment doesn't get too big. And I know we got some players on our team where the moment's not too big. You want to go out there to battle with guys that, you have the ultimate belief in. We've got 70 plays left in the season. We should run our best 70. You got to make the plays in order to win. We made the plays in order to win, and they didn't in Week 1. But this is a totally different thing, and they've got a damn good football team. They were playing lights out. I'm expecting their best. It's going to take our best, and that's what playoff football is all about.
I know one guy who doesn't feel this moment is too big. That's Tom Brady. No moment too big for him. Look, Marcus, I'll start with you on this one. The Bucs 3-point underdogs, according to Caesars. What needs to happen if they're going to pull off this upset?
It means absolutely nothing. One, it all begins with protection.
All right.
Like, we know that if there's any type of way that the Dallas Cowboys defensively can get to this, one, you got to stop the running D and allow Micah Parsons and that defensive line to take advantage of an offensive line that still gives some things up. They did a better job against Carolina in some protection. We've cried all year about Tampa Bay running play action just to give Tom Brady a little bit more time, but also that run game. If they are going to take care of business, it'll be about protection. But Dallas, one advantage in this game, I believe, is at the line of scrimmage, and that is making sure that Micah Parsons is in that rush as much as possible. Like I said, Week 1, Jay, they had him off the ball, didn't work out well. They put him on the ball, it resulted in 2 sacks. So I would say, if you Dallas and Dan Quinn, you going into this game figuring out how to get Micah Parsons in the rush every possible chance you get.
Yeah, Marcus is absolutely right. Dallas's biggest advantage in this game is the line of scrimmage defensively. So for the Bucs, the biggest question they have to answer is, how do you mitigate that pass rush? The answer is not running north-south on early downs, because all you'll be doing is setting up Tom Brady for 3rd and long. So to Marcus's point, I'd like to see play action. I'd like to see a run game that's more horizontal, that uses misdirection. And I'd like Brady to come out throwing. He does get the ball out so quickly, and that really helps the offensive line I think he can do that and prey on some of Dallas's vulnerabilities on the back end that I spoke about earlier. Then on the other side of the ball, guys, Dallas's rushing attack has been very quiet the last half of the season, and that really is about the line of scrimmage too. Tampa with Vita Vea back is very good.